be two, causally two periods. What about our universe? Now, specifically our universe, because I said samawat wal ard just means our universe in the context of Quran. Is our universe created in 6 periods? This is a question. Again, I want to stress that these periods have nothing to do with the periods in which 7 universe, like multiverse is created. That's a completely different scale we are talking about. We are not talking about the period at which Earth is created, a completely different scale. But is it true that our universe, the universe we occupy, is created in 6 periods? Is it true? So I'll tell you now some interesting information about our universe, which will be interesting to you. Like
Everything you're
there are
telling us is interesting, Professor. Everything you're telling us is interesting.
So, so there are you could classify the age of universe based on what you could say whether what kind of physics is operating in the universe, and then there would be different phases where you had different physics, and these phases would be like the analogy I can give you is that water has a different behavior from ice, and ice has a different behavior from vapor, or they're called different phases. So does our universe have phases in its cosmological evolution? The idea answer is yes. So based on the physics, okay,
Okay.
how many phases we have? I will not again talk about each of these phases because that will, like, I want to cover a lot more material today, hopefully. And so
Hold on,
I'll but
hold on to your brains, people. Hold on to your brains.
like, like there are four fundamental forces, right? So in the beginning, all the four forces operate together in the Planckian epoch. And these epochs are, by the way, not like, when we're talking of now phases, what time scales are we talking about? 10 to the power minus 43 seconds. That is 0.004301 seconds. That's when this phase exists. But in that phase, all the four forces act together. So the Planck epoch, when all the four forces act together.
By the four
Then there is the
forces, we're talking about the fundamental forces of like
yeah,
gravity and electromagnetism and
gravity, electromagnetism,
strong
strong, weak,
force,
and
weak force. You think I don't know the four forces, people? Yeah.
but so we have all the four forces acting together in the Planck epoch, first epoch. The first force to separate out is gravity in the grand unified theory epoch, second epoch, which is around 10 to the power minus 36 seconds. The third force to separate out is the strong force,
Okay.
and we come to the electron. And then we have the electroweak force splitting out. So this is already four different phases of our universe. Then we again might need a fifth phase because there are many things in our universe we don't understand. For example, why is matter there more matter than antimatter? The theory for that is called baryogenesis, and then we don't know why there's dark matter. So a possible solution to that is supersymmetry, which we have not again confirmed. There are strong constraints on that from LHC. There are many different models for this. So this fifth phase is not understood. How does so universe clearly has these four phases, and then the possible fifth phase in which all these physics come, so these mysteries get solved and we come to the present physics. So six different physical phases of
So
our.
just to be clear, so you've got the four forces, those four phases. You're saying the fifth is matter. It is dealing with things like dark matter, antimatter,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Dark energy, all
not
of that.
dark energy. Dark
Not dark,
energy gravities.
not
The
dark
dark
energy.
matter, not
Not
dark,
dark energy, people. Just
not
dark matter.
dark, dark matter. And not only dark matter, predominance of matter over antimatter. So this all can happen in another phase transition, if you like. Uh,
dark,
and
dark.
if
Hashtag
it's like supersymmetry,
dark lives.
if if supersymmetry is true, this is pretty straightforward. But if it is not true, we have other models also. So we don't understand the fifth phase, to be in all
Okay,
honesty.
sure,
And then
sure.
we have the present phase. So this is based on the physics of our universe.
Mm.
You could also argue that let's not look at physics. Let's look at the rate of expansion of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you would have a pre-inflationary state. Then there is a rapid expansion, the inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the radiation dominated era, which ends around 47,000 years after Big Bang. And then there is the matter dominated era. And then around 9.8 billion years ago, we enter into the dark energy dominated era. And in far future, we will enter into the far future where the physics are slightly different, rather
Mm-hmm.
completely different.
So
So again,
what you're saying is you could take a different paradigm and it still has these six
six,
stages.
and and you could take a different thing and say, well, let me look at what like what is the like what's the construction of, like what are the particles that the universe that dominate the universe, the mass of
Okay.
the universe. So you would start with pre-standard model particles which would be existing in the first phase. Then you would have the quark epoch around 10 to the power minus 12 seconds, and then you would have these quarks would mix into, like, join together to form the hadrons around 10 to the power minus 6 seconds. So you would have the pre-standard model epoch, the quark epoch, the hadron epoch, and then you would have something called lepton epoch, and then you would have, again, you would have photon epoch, and then you would have um, and then you would have our formation of neutral matter. So again, six epochs. So you still have like them. And again, I would be honest here, unlike Earth's, when I talked about Earth, which was pretty straightforward, two stages 100%, and when I said geological ages 400%, and when I said multiverse, again, it's a bit of an interpretation but very certain that you can think bit and then it. Here, it's because we don't understand many of these phases. So I would be, in all honesty, I would say that based on three different ways of classifying the age of the universe, it is highly like it's convenient to classify it in six different epochs. There seem to be six different epochs, but again, we do not have certainty because we have not seen supersymmetry. We don't understand these things very well. It's the lack of our knowledge that makes me say that it is highly likely that the evolution of our universe occurred in six different epochs, and that is based on three different ways of classifying the age of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But on
Okay.
honesty, again, I will be honest here. I won't put it like, you remember when I talked about geological eras, I said 100% certain. I would not use those words here. Because, for example, take inflation. Somebody had written a paper that inflation can occur in 2 stages. I mean, these things are not really well understood. There are many
Ah.
competing theories here. But in all honesty, it seems highly likely. Like, you had the four splits of four forces, and then you possibly need a fifth one, and so six seems to be the most natural classification.
Fair enough. So what we're saying is that this is a very the classification given in the Quran of sittat ayyam, of 6 days, is something that seems to fit very nicely to our current understanding, even if we change it depending on what we're looking at, whether we're looking at the forces and other things, or whether we're looking at matter in and of itself, how that formed.
Rate
Many
of
of these things
expansion.
seem to have been given six different formations. That's what we're saying.
Yes. Now look at this. Again, we come to this dual reading of Quran. When people in the past would have read six ayam, they would have related it to the Genesis 6 days.
Yeah.
And but again, I told you, Quran has this subtle code that has to be deciphered. But Quran just showed you that this is not six, because it gave also the evolution of Earth separately, and it discussed the creation of multiverse separately. So when people would naively add, they would not add 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. It can't be 6. So if it is not six, it's not the Genesis description. There is something else. And but this again required sophistication which people in the past did not have, I would say, and we have it, and we that they can't.
Uh, I'm sure they had sophistication, but a different type. But yes, of course. So
But let's see what goes.
what you're saying is that, you see, they wouldn't have understood this to mean eight, because they already had that Genesis backdrop of saying, well, 6 days. So when God says He created the world in 6 days, they already knew that. So in the other verses, when people are adding up the separate and saying 2 plus 4 plus 2, oh, this equals 8 now, that's not how they would have understood it. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yes, and then so they would be wondering what happens here. So now what we understand is that the first verse, when it talks of creation of Earth, it's a different scale. Distribution of Earth, different scale. Multiverse, a completely different scale. And creation of heavens and earth, by that meaning the creation of universe, a completely different scale. These are different scales, different phenomena, but the division seems to be correct. And interestingly, if you want to be naive and read it as a Genesis narrative, you can do. And I guess in past people might have done that. So again, you come to this dual reading of Quran. Look at the beauty of the structure. It just amazes me. Like, I keep getting amazed by Quran all the time. But let's come
MashaAllah.